Black single father offers shelter to a mysterious girl. He never expected what followed. Subscribe to the channel for more stories and like the video. A down-on-his-luck single father provided a stranger with a place to stay for one evening, completely unaware that she was the daughter of a millionaire and that they would begin to fall for each other. "You shouldn't be out here alone," Malik stated, his voice calm, yet firm as a heavy downpour soaked his shoulders. "This is no place for anybody at 2 in the morning." The young woman spun around, startled. Her dark hair was plastered to her face, and her eyes, wide with alarm, darted around the desolate street before finally settling on him. "I don't need your pity," she retorted, wrapping her arms around herself more tightly. Malik edged a little nearer, maintaining a respectful distance. He was still dressed in his city sanitation uniform, its reflective stripes glowing softly in the streetlight. "This isn't pity," he clarified. "It's an offer of a warm, dry place, away from strangers who might have knives." The woman paused. Her lips were trembling, and not just from the chill. He noticed the tremor in her fingers and the way she glanced toward the shadowed end of the street, as if she was expecting someone, or perhaps dreading their return. "What happened to you?" he asked, his tone softening. She looked down at the pavement. I got robbed. My phone's dead. They took my bag." Malik allowed a moment of silence to pass before he let out a long breath. "Is there someone you need to call?" She shook her head. "I don't want to speak to anyone. I just need somewhere safe to wait until the sun comes up." Malik considered his options. His first instinct was to keep walking. He had his 6-year-old daughter at home. He couldn't afford to take risks. Yet, something in the way she stood there, a mixture of trembling pride and genuine fear, compelled him to act. "All right," he resolved, adjusting the strap of his work bag. "My place is just 2 blocks away. It isn't grand, but it's dry and warm. You can have the couch for the night." She appeared as though she might refuse, but then her knees buckled slightly. "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. They walked in silence. Malik kept a small, courteous distance, though he remained watchful. When they arrived at his modest duplex, he carefully unlocked the front door and gestured for her to enter. The home was dimly lit and tidy, but clearly occupied, with a shelf of children's books and a little pink backpack by the door. "You can leave your shoes there," he said, pointing to a mat. "The sofa is all yours. You'll find an extra blanket inside that closet." She nodded silently, using her sleeve to wipe rainwater from her face. Malik went to a small room at the back of the house, which was crowded with boxes. He placed his wallet and keys inside a locked drawer, a habit born not of suspicion, but of a life that demanded caution. He returned carrying a blanket, a fresh towel, and a dry sweatshirt. "The bathroom is on your right," he told her, handing her the items. "Feel free to take a shower. The water takes a minute to heat up." She accepted them with both hands, her eyes flicking to his face, puzzled by his quiet generosity. "Why are you doing this for me?" she finally asked. Malik rubbed the back of his neck. "Because you looked like you were in trouble, and I'd want someone to do the same for my daughter if she ever needed help." The woman seemed to flinch at the mention of a daughter, but said nothing. While she was in the bathroom, Malik scribbled a quick note and set it beside a cup of water he had warmed in the microwave. Then, as quietly as possible, he slipped down the hall and into the bedroom he shared with his little girl. Ayana emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later, wrapped in the oversized sweatshirt. The house was silent. On the coffee table next to the couch, she found the folded blanket, the mug of warm water, and the note. It read, "If you need to call someone, the landline is on the wall. Feel free to get more blankets from the closet. Please keep the door to the hallway closed. My daughter is a light sleeper." She gazed at the note for a long time, her fingers brushing against the warm ceramic of the cup. The heat seeped into her skin, and for the first time that night, she experienced a feeling that had been absent for days: safety. She curled up on the couch, pulled the blanket over herself, and drifted off to the sound of the rain softening outside. The man who had taken her and hadn't asked for her name, nor had he offered his. He hadn't judged her or made her feel indebted. She had no idea who he was. For now, that was irrelevant. She would sleep, and in the morning, she would face what came next. Ayana awoke to the sound of high-pitched giggling, unmistakably a child's. For a second, she was disoriented. The soft blanket cocooned her, the scent of something cooking wafted from the kitchen, and the low murmur of cartoons played in the background. It was a world away from the chaos of the previous night. She sat up slowly, blinking in the gentle morning light. Across the small living room, a little girl with bouncy curls sat cross-legged on the rug, constructing a tower of plastic blocks and chuckling to herself, oblivious that Ayana was awake. "Good morning," Ayana said, her voice still hoarse from sleep. The child looked up, her face alight with curiosity. "You're the princess who slept on our couch," she declared happily. Ayana blinked. "Excuse me. My name is Zuri," the girl said with pride. "Daddy said a nice lady was staying over because she was cold and got caught in the rain." "That's you?" Ayana let out a small laugh, her first genuine smile in what felt like an eternity. "I suppose that is me. It's lovely to meet you." "Zuri," a voice called from the kitchen. "Zuri, breakfast duty. Come help me burn the toast." Zuri giggled again and scampered toward the kitchen. Ayana stood, stretched her stiff limbs, and followed. She found Malik in the small kitchen, cracking eggs into a bowl with one hand while stirring something in a pan with the other. "You cook?" she asked, her tone a mix of admiration and surprise. Malik glanced over his shoulder. "Only if Zuri is brave enough to eat what I make." "Want to help?" Ayana hesitated. "I can try, but I should warn you, I'm not exactly skilled at cooking or any housework." He handed her a whisk and smiled. "Neither am I. That's why we have a lot of burnt toast in this house," she laughed, the sound startling even to herself. Together, they navigated the compact kitchen. Zuri climbed onto a stool to butter bread, while Ayana attempted to flip the scrambled eggs. Predictably, she fumbled. The spatula slipped, and the bowl tilted, sending eggs splattering over the counter and floor. "Oh no," Ayana gasped. She reached for a cloth, but Zuri was faster, handing her a paper towel with a wide grin. "It's okay. Daddy spills stuff all the time, too." Ayana stared at the little girl for a moment before bursting into heartfelt laughter. Malik said nothing, just smiled as he quietly salvaged the remaining eggs and continued cooking. When they finally sat down to eat, Ayana eyed the plate in front of Malik nervously. She had done her best, but the eggs were rubbery and the toast was charred. Still, Malik ate every last bite. "This is great," he said with a completely straight face. "You don't have to lie," Ayana replied, raising an eyebrow. "I'm not," Malik insisted. "It's edible. That's what counts." Zuri picked at her food, chewing thoughtfully. After the meal, Malik stood and gathered the plates. "You two go relax. I've got this." Ayana's offer to help was waved away. As she and Zuri moved to the living room, she glanced back and saw him discreetly retrieving another plate from the oven, filled with freshly scrambled eggs and perfectly golden toast. He had cooked a backup meal for Zuri, just in case. She kept this observation to herself. Later that morning, as Ayana helped Zuri construct a fortress out of blocks, the little girl leaned in conspiratorially. "The eggs Daddy made after were better," she whispered. "But it's okay. He still ate yours." Ayana's eyebrows shot up. "He made more." Zuri nodded solemnly. "But he told me not to tell." "Oops." Ayana rose, walked to the kitchen, and leaned against the doorframe. Malik looked up, caught mid-bite from his second plate of eggs. She crossed her arms. "So, I ruined breakfast," he smiled sheepishly. "You cooked breakfast. That's what matters. Why not just tell me?" Malik shrugged. "Because the first time you do something, it's always a mess. You just need someone to eat it anyway." Ayana regarded him for a long moment as something shifted within her. He was unlike anyone she had ever encountered, sincere, profoundly kind, and patient in a way that put her completely at ease. "You said something last night about hoping someone would help your daughter if she ever got into trouble," she said softly. "You're a good father, Malik." He simply offered a slight smile and returned to his breakfast. Later, while he was washing dishes, Malik spoke casually. "There's a laundromat down the block. The owner is a friend. I could see if they need an extra hand, if you're planning on staying in the city for a bit." Ayana hesitated. "I might need to earn some money while I sort out some papers. I lost everything my job My ID, all of it, she explained vaguely. I'm a student, or I was. I'm from out of state. It's a long story. Malik didn't press for details. He just nodded. Let me know if you want me to take you over to the laundromat. Ayana looked at him again. This man had no clue who she really was and didn't seem to care. He was helping her simply because it was in his nature, and that gesture made her feel more seen than any amount of money ever had. The bell over the laundromat door jingled as Ayana stepped into a wall of scents: soap, bleach, and a sour, metallic odor. Machines churned and clanked, laundry baskets overflowed, and the air was thick and humid. A woman behind the counter gave her a brief glance. "You're Malik's friend?" she asked gruffly. Ayana nodded. The woman tossed an apron at her. "Your shift starts now." And with that, she had a job. By midday, Ayana's back ached, her hands were raw from detergents, and she had already been snapped at by 2 different customers. One accused her of shrinking a sweater, while another dropped 3 heavy bags of damp laundry at her feet, saying, "I expect this done by 5, before walking out. She glanced at the clock. She was only 3 hours in. Late that afternoon, she found herself slumped against the brick wall in the alley behind the shop, her apron stained, her face flushed. Her dead phone felt like a useless brick in her pocket. She stared at a dumpster and seriously contemplated walking away, back to a shelter, back to anywhere but here. When she got back to Malik's place that evening, she was silent. She just dropped her bag, sank onto the edge of the couch, and winced as she peeled off her shoes, revealing angry blisters on her heels. Malik saw, but didn't comment. The next morning, Ayana woke to find a pair of clean, white sneakers sitting by the door. There was no price tag, no note, and they were definitely not hers. She picked one up. It was lightweight, sturdy, and exactly her size. Tucked inside one shoe was a small, folded piece of paper. It said, "I figured your feet deserve better. If you're going to walk away, at least don't walk in pain." She stood there for a long time, holding the shoes. Then, she put them on. When Malik came home from his night shift, she was in the kitchen, already making toast. "You didn't leave," he observed. "I was close," she admitted. "But your guilt-trip shoes worked," Malik smirked. "They weren't meant for guilt. They were meant to say you have a choice. That's all." Later that week, she groaned while folding a mountain of towels. "I've never been this exhausted," she muttered, rubbing her sore neck. "And I used to complain that yoga was hard." Malik looked up from sorting a laundry bag. "You're earning something real now." She shot him a weary look. "You mean chronic back pain?" "I mean the freedom that comes from your own hard work," he said. "Even when your hands get dirty, what you earn is yours. Nobody can take that away." Ayana didn't reply immediately, but his words lingered with her. That Friday, the laundromat landed a huge contract for a local hotel, requiring them to wash, dry, and fold hundreds of sheets and uniforms by the next morning. Ayana stayed late to help Malik finish the job. They worked past midnight under the hum of fluorescent lights. Malik folded with silent, practiced efficiency. Ayana struggled to match his pace, often refolding the same shirt 3 times. Around 2 in the morning, they finally loaded the last of the clean laundry into the back of Malik's old pickup truck. "I can't feel my fingers," Ayana moaned as she climbed into the passenger seat. "You'll miss them when they're gone," Malik replied dryly, turning the key in the ignition. They drove through the silent city, making deliveries. The quiet between them was comfortable, easy. At one stop, Malik handed Ayana a small laundry bag. "Go leave this at the door." "Number 15, the house with the porch light on." Ayana nodded and got out. She placed the bag on the doorstep and turned to leave, but at that exact moment, the porch light clicked off and a large dog shot out from behind a gate, barking and charging toward her. Ayana screamed and stumbled backward, twisting her ankle on the curb. She fell hard, her palms scraping against the rough concrete. The truck door slammed shut as Malik sprinted toward her. He reached her just as the dog skidded to a halt, barking furiously. Malik placed himself between her and the animal, arms outstretched, and yelled, "Get back!" The startled dog retreated toward the yard. Before she could object, Malik had scooped her into his arms. "I told you to wait in the truck," he snapped as he carried her back. "I thought I could handle 1 bag of laundry," she mumbled, clutching her throbbing wrist. He set her down gently inside the truck and slammed the door. "Damn it, Ayana," he said, his voice raw as he ran a hand down his face. "I said to stay put. It's just a scrape. I don't care about the scrape," he cut in fiercely. "I care that you could have been seriously hurt. What were you thinking?" She had never seen him this way, truly angry. But beneath the anger was something else. Fear. She looked at him, and her eyes suddenly filled with tears, not from the pain in her ankle, but from an overwhelming wave of emotion. "No one has ever yelled at me because they were scared for me," she whispered. Malik leaned back, the tension in his shoulders finally easing. "Well," he said quietly, "you're in the wrong house now." Ayana wiped at her tears and let out a wet, broken laugh. And for the first time, this didn't feel like just a house anymore. It felt like something else entirely, something a lot like home. Ayana was folding towels behind the counter when a necklace tumbled out. It was a delicate, thin gold chain with a single brilliant blue stone that captured the light like a drop of liquid fire. She had stashed it deep inside a pocket of her duffel bag, wrapped in an old sock, hoping to forget it existed. But somehow, it had found its way into a load of laundry. She froze the instant she saw it resting atop a pile of clean white linens. Before she could snatch it, Malik walked by, stopped, and looked down, his eyes fixed on the piece of jewelry. For a long moment, he was silent. Then, his gaze slowly lifted to meet hers. She held her breath. "That," he said quietly, "is not something a broke student carries around." Ayana hesitated before quickly grabbing the necklace and shoving it into her back pocket. "I forgot I had it," she mumbled. "Who is it from?" Malik asked, his voice low and serious. Ayana remained silent. Malik took a step back, his expression hardening. "Who are you, really?" Ayana swallowed, the silence in the room now deafening. "I'm someone who walked away from a world where love is the only thing that doesn't have a price tag," she said at last. "That's all you need to know." He stared at her, his jaw tight. "You lied to me. I didn't lie. I omitted things." Malik's voice dropped to a near whisper. "That's the same thing." Ayana's lips trembled, but she turned away, her hands shaking. "Do you have any idea what it's like to be watched every second of your life? To be told who to love, where to go, what to become?" "No," Malik said coldly. "But I know what it's like to be honest with someone who isn't being honest back." They stood in a tense standoff, the hum of the machines filling the space between them. Before either of them could say more, the front door swung open. A man in a leather jacket and a baseball cap entered, holding up a smartphone, his eyes locked on Ayana. "There she is," he muttered, raising his phone. Ayana's breath hitched. The man snapped a picture. "You've been off the grid for 5 days, sweetheart. Your daddy's offering 6 figures for information on your whereabouts." Malik stepped forward. "Hey, get out of here. Relax, man. I'm just doing my job," the man said, snapping another photo. Panic seized Ayana as she backed away. Malik moved with lightning speed. He grabbed her by the arm and pulled her toward the rear exit. "Go now." They burst through the back door and ran until they reached his truck. "What about Zuri?" Ayana gasped, her mind racing. "She's at school. I'll get her." Within an hour, a sleepy and confused Zuri was buckled into the back seat of the truck with a juice box. Ayana watched in a daze as Malik drove not to their home, but to the house next door, to his neighbor, Miss Lindive. "She'll keep her safe," Malik explained. "You trust her." "With my life," he replied firmly. Miss Lindive opened the door before he even knocked, giving a silent, understanding nod. "Come on in, baby. I'll look after the little one." Malik leaned down and kissed Zuri's forehead. "You're going to stay with Grandma Lindive for a bit, okay?" Like a sleepover, Zuri nodded. "Okay, Daddy." Malik straightened up, took a deep breath, and turned to Ayana. "Let's go." They drove out of the neighborhood and didn't speak until they were on the outskirts of town. Ayana watched him, her chest tight with a mixture of guilt and gratitude. She then noticed his shirt sleeve was torn. "Your arm," she said suddenly. "What happened?" He glanced down at the bruise forming on his bicep. "That guy shoved me when I tried to block his phone. Why didn't you say anything?" Malik shrugged. "As long as you and Zuri are safe, I can handle a bruise." Ayana looked at him, her eyes welling up again. In that moment, she understood. Malik didn't protect her because of who she might be. He protected her because of who he was. They returned to the house just after sunset. Malik parked a block away, scanning the street for unfamiliar cars. The porch light was off. Something felt wrong. He motioned for her to stay put, but Ayana was already opening her door. "It's okay," she said. "If someone is here for me, I need to face them." They walked toward the house together, and that's when they saw it, a sleek, black luxury sedan idling by the curb. Two men in dark suits stood on the porch. The front door was ajar. Malik quickened his pace, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. He stepped in front of Ayana just as a third man emerged from the house. He was older and tall, with silver-streaked hair combed back, exuding an authority that seemed to suck the air from the street. "Ayana," he said, his voice cold as steel. "Get in the car." Ayana froze. Malik did not. "Are you her father?" he asked, his voice unwavering. "I am Otis McKean," the man stated, his eyes sharp and assessing. "And you're the man who's been hiding my daughter." "I'm the man who gave her a couch when she had nowhere else to turn," Malik retorted. Otis took a slow step forward, his gaze sweeping over the modest house with unconcealed disgust. This place, this life, it's beneath her. "You can't possibly believe she belongs here. She made that choice," Malik said. "Not me. You can't keep her here." "I'm not keeping anyone," Malik countered, his voice hardening. "But I'm not about to hand her over like she's a piece of luggage." Either Otis's eyes narrowed. "You don't know who she is." "I don't care who she is," Malik shot back. "I know what kind of person she is, and I know she's safe with me." Ayana stepped between them, her voice surprisingly steady. "Dad, stop. You've made your point," Otis said, gesturing toward his man. "Now, come home. This is my home," she whispered. "No," he said firmly. "This is where you ran to." "It is not where you belong." Malik turned to Ayana. "You don't have to go," but she was already looking at the car, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I think I do." "No one is forcing you," Malik said, his voice strained. "Yes, they are," she replied, her voice breaking. He understood then. The pressure wasn't a physical threat. It was the crushing weight of a life she had tried to escape. She backed away from him slowly. He didn't follow. As she turned toward the car, a bodyguard opened the door. Otis said nothing, his mission accomplished. Ayana paused at the curb, her back to Malik. "I'm sorry," she said softly, without looking back. He couldn't find the words to respond. The car door shut with a solid, final thud. Malik stood on his porch and watched the taillights disappear into the darkness, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He didn't say a word. He just closed the door and switched off the porch light. The days that followed were suffocatingly quiet. Malik moved through his life on autopilot. He clocked in for his night shifts, cleaned the city streets, and returned home just before dawn. But the spark was gone. He no longer lit up when Zuri greeted him. His hands felt disconnected as he packed her lunch, brushed her hair, and walked her to the bus stop. He told her only that Ayana had to leave, and that it wasn't because she didn't care. Zuri didn't ask many questions, but she stopped humming to herself as she played and started asking to sleep with a nightlight on. On the fourth day, she developed a cough. At first, Malik dismissed it as a simple cold. But the cough was followed by a fever, then chills, then violent shivers that no amount of blankets could quell. By midnight, she was burning up. Malik carried her to the truck, his hands trembling as he fumbled with the keys. At the hospital, the sterile, bright lights seemed to amplify his anxiety. A nurse took Zuri to an examination room while Malik paced nervously in the waiting area. Finally, an administrator approached him. "We'll need a payment of $6,000 to admit her." Malik pulled out his wallet, already knowing it was futile. He had a little over $100 to his name. "Can I make a partial payment?" he pleaded. "I can cover the rest in a few days," the woman hesitated. "Hospital policy is..." "Please," Malik begged, his voice cracking. "She's only 6 years old." He was still pleading when a clear voice cut through the tense air. "I've got it." He turned. Ayana was standing there, her coat draped over her arm. She walked past him and placed a credit card on the counter. "Put everything on my account," she told the receptionist. "The room, medicine, any tests. All of it." The receptionist began typing. "And your relationship to the patient?" Ayana met Malik's gaze, then said firmly, "Family." An hour later, After the doctors had diagnosed a treatable virus that required observation, Malik sat hunched over in a chair by his daughter's bed. Ayana entered the room quietly. He didn't look up at first. When he finally did, his voice was low and heavy with emotion. "You didn't have to do that." She took the seat beside him. "I know," he let out a shaky breath. "I am sorry. You never should have been dragged into all this." Ayana looked at Zuri, who was sleeping fitfully. "You didn't drag me into anything, Malik. I came back," he nodded slowly. "I know you don't owe me a thing," he said, his voice thick with unshed tears. "But thank you for coming back." Ayana leaned her head back and stared at the ceiling for a moment. "You once told me that everyone deserves to walk without pain," she said softly. "That goes for hearts, too." They sat together in the quiet, the only sounds the steady beeping of Zuri's monitor and the hum of the machines. For the first time in days, Malik felt he could finally breathe. Ayana stood in the opulent hallway of her father's penthouse, the city sparkling below. She wasn't interested in the view. Otis McKean sat at the head of a long glass table, perusing the financial news. He didn't look up as she entered. "I assumed you'd be back once you came to your senses," he said coolly. "I didn't come back," Ayana corrected him. "I came to talk." Otis folded the newspaper with deliberate precision. "You're living in a fantasy, Ayana. Playing house with a man who has to work 3 jobs just to pay the bills." She crossed her arms. "That man saved me from what?" he scoffed. "A little bit of discomfort? You had everything. A future, security, a family name. You threw it all away for what?" Ayana stepped closer to the table. "I didn't throw it away. I walked away." "There's a difference." Otis rose from his chair. "You gave up your entire life to go hide in some tiny house with a janitor." Her voice was steady. "He's not a janitor. He's a father. He's a man who shows up for his daughter every single day, without fail. He's a man who taught me more about strength in 3 weeks than you taught me in 30 years. Otis's eyes narrowed. "You're going to choose him over all of this? Over me?" She met his gaze directly. "I'm choosing my life, my voice. And yes, I am choosing the man who lives by his hands and by his heart." His lips tightened. "You love him." "I do." He exhaled sharply, as if the very words had wounded him. "He can't give you anything." Ayana offered a small, sad smile. "He gives me everything that matters." Otis paced toward the massive windows. "This isn't some fairy tale, Ayana. Real life is hard. You'll grow tired of the struggle. Love doesn't pay the heating bill, no." She agreed, her eyes following him. "But it does keep people warm." He spun around, his expression finally showing a flicker of vulnerability. "You think he can protect you? Provide for you?" "He already has," she said. "Not with money. With respect. With truth." Silence hung in the air. Finally, Otis walked to the bar and poured himself a drink. "I never intended to be the villain in your story," he muttered into his glass. "I know," Ayana said softly. "You just forgot how to be a person." He stared down at the amber liquid, the rigidity in his shoulders softening. "He has something I don't." Ayana tilted her head. "You mean a daughter who loves him for who he is?" He looked up sharply, but she didn't flinch. "I'm going back now," she stated simply. "To him, to the life I've chosen. And this time, I'm not running from something. I'm walking toward it." Otis didn't try to stop her. As she reached the door, he called out her name. Tell him he's a lucky man." She turned back one last time. "No," she said gently. "I'm the lucky one." Then she walked out into her real life and did not look back. The knock on the door came just after sunrise. Malik was in the kitchen making dinosaur-shaped pancakes for Zuri. He opened the door and froze. Ayana stood on his porch, her hair in a messy bun, holding a small brown paper bag. "For Zuri," she said quietly. "Blueberry muffins." The good kind." Malik was speechless. "I'm not here to stay the night," she added quickly. "I'm here to stay forever, if you'll have me." He searched her eyes for any sign of doubt and found none. "We're not rich," he said, his voice rough with emotion. Ayana stepped closer. "I've had rich, Malik. I've had money and travel and fancy things. But I never had a kitchen where someone was making me dinosaur pancakes. I never had a home that felt like it loved me back." He just stared at her, the weight of all the sleepless nights and unspoken feelings threatening to spill out. "This house is small. It's enough," she said. "It's filled with love." His expression softened. "We don't have much. I had everything," she repeated gently. "But I never had a family." A small voice interrupted them. "Ayana." They both turned to see Zuri in the doorway, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. Ayana knelt. "Hey, sunshine. I brought muffins." Zuri ran into her arms, wrapping them tightly around her neck. "Are you staying forever?" she asked. Ayana looked up at Malik. He gave a slow, deliberate nod. She smiled through her tears. "Yeah, kiddo. Forever sounds good." 2 months later, on a crisp Saturday morning, the local park was alive with the sounds of families and laughter. Malik's old pickup truck had been transformed into a weekend food stand, an idea that had been all Ayana's. The sign read, "Malik's Jams, breakfast wraps, muffins, and coffee." Ayana worked the griddle while Malik took orders, and Zuri proudly handed out napkins to the customers. They weren't making a fortune, but they were making a life. Ayana flipped a pancake and caught Malik watching her. He smiled and silently mouthed the words, "Thank you," she grinned back. For the first time, she didn't need a palace to feel like a queen. She just needed them. The greatest lives are often built not with wealth, but with kindness, integrity, and the courage to choose love. All Malik had to offer was a couch, a cup of warm water, and a heart full of quiet dignity. And that, it turned out, was exactly what Ayana needed to find the one thing her world had never given her: home.